Hi all, it's Matchbook Horse Racing podcast time, and we're focusing on the weekend action, which is pretty competitive, to be fair. So nice to go through a few races and an ITV card, which is fairly open with some nice open handicaps to get stuck into. Fair few bets we're going up between Dan Overall, Steve Jones, and me, Tom Stanley. A reminder that we are racing to 5,000 Matchbook YouTube subscribers. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you like the content, hit the subscribe button. We're hoping to get there by the end of Cheltenham. And it's the best no-cost way for you guys out there to support the podcast is by liking and subscribing to it. So please do that. Don't forget to check out our Cheltenham preview nights. Had loads of views. It was just about the first one out there. We did it Monday night. And there was an excellent panel assembled. And we went right through all the grade ones at Cheltenham, plus some handicaps and plenty more besides. And that was when Constitution Hill still had 4 legs. So there we are. All right, here we go. 120 at Newbury. Let's get stuck in. Dan Overall is with me. Oh, one of you was a no bet. Dan, you were a no bet. Right, stand down. Just Steve and I are going to talk about this Veterans Handicap Chase. 5.0 for Copperhead. Highland Hunter is 5.5. Omar Moretti 6.0. Fortescue 8.0. And 11.0. And bigger the rest. I remember, Steve, when I backed Copperhead for the Cheltenham Festival off the back of his Ascot win. He ran a shocker there and he hasn't won since. Over to you.
Yeah, I think I backed him as well. His last win was in the Reynoldstown about 130 years ago when Constitution Hill still had the working lung capacity, not leg problems. No problem with his legs, Tommy. He's got a bit of sniffles. But I think I like these veterans races. I think they're good betting races. And I like 10-year-olds in them if possible. And that's what Fortescue is. Fortescue's a horse that loves testing ground. Huge amount of rain around at the moment. And although it's, I think it's good to soft it, sort of Doncaster and KELSO, I doubt that'll stay the same. And Newbury is already soft. So I think that could go really testing. And Fortescue loves soft ground and stays very, very well. Actually got round in the Grand National last year and wasn't up to that sort of task, but did get round. And since then, 4th to Nassalam at Chepstow. Well, the winner did a lot for the form, but the rest of them haven't. But I wasn't too concerned about the run at Sandown last time because that was on decent ground. And Fortescue's a much better horse when he gets testing ground. Henry Daly is in really good form. He's got his horses in right nick. And Harry Cobden rides. Now that's interesting because Hugh Nugent usually rides. I think Hugh Nugent's parents or grandparents own Fortescue, so he always rides it. And nothing against Hugh Nugent because he's ridden a couple of times for us in France, but Harry Cobden might just find the key to this horse, and I'm confident of a big run with him. I really fancy his chances because I think when you see Copperhead in its second favourite, it hasn't won since Willy Wonka was Gene Wilder and not in Glasgow. It's an open race. There for the taking.
And he's favourite now. He's 5.0 for Copperhead, just about heading it from Highland Hunter. I agree that I wanted to take him on. I'm doing so with Commodore for Charlie Deutsch and Venetia Williams. He's just looking like a well-treated horse now. And there was promise there last time. Obviously, he stumbled at the start and he lost his stirrups, but I'm not paying too much attention to that. Although it did mean that he didn't get his normal prominent position. But he still had a chance to get into the race. But I think a forward ride here, and hopefully Charlie Deutsch won't lose any irons. Then 128, he's well treated, but he is the oldest horse in the race, I think. But it's a veterans race for a reason. No, he's not Cyclops. There you go. So that's me, and we move on to the 142 at Kelso. Dan, I'll bring you in here. Frighteningly, I agree with you, so apologies for that. It's So Fury is 6.0. Oh, really open this weekend. Serious Operator 6.0. The Kaluki Kid 6.5. Penton Hill 7.0. Brewing Up a Storm 8.0. Top weight, Dan Overall.
Yeah, it's the veteran show because you've just tipped up a 12-year-old and I'll go with the 11-year-old Brewing Up a Storm. I think it's a fairly safe bet that he was going to be absolutely prime ready for the National Spirit at Fontwell, which we lost. That was towards the back end of last week. So I think they probably geared a lot of his season around going there because we know how prolific he's been around there. But obviously they lost that meeting. Solly Murphy was probably left scrambling to find an alternative. So I don't have any concerns about his readiness after a 2-month break. This is his first handicap run since 2021, which he won by 11 lengths off 148. Obviously not the same horse anymore as an 11-year-old, but down to 147 here. I think that's fairly workable. Ran pretty respectably at Aintree, and then again in the Rail Keel, where no match for Bob Ollinger, but was giving a lot of weight away to Marie's Rock and Strong Leader in second and fourth. There was no disgrace in that run. He's just not up to that caliber anymore. Drops in class here. I'm not really necessarily convinced about too many of these. It's not maybe the strongest handicap in terms of real depth. It's an open race, but I don't think there's many really well handicapped horses in there. So I think Brewing Up a Storm back in lighter company, I think he'll be absolutely prime ready because his main target was a week ago and they unfortunately lost it.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add is I'm quite looking forward to seeing him over this trip as well. So, and you probably said that at the start. Apologies. But yeah, I think he's. I know he's top weight, but he's fairly treated on his best form. So Brewing Up a Storm for me as well. Steve Jones.
Serious Operator for me, and a horse that I think is still got more to offer. Was got a good record on soft ground. Won at Newcastle back last season in soft ground, and has not raced on it much since. The only time he's been on it is heavy at Wetherby, when it's probably a little bit all too much. But since then, has beaten Pentland Hills at Doncaster. That was a good run and a good win. And then last time, fifth in the Lanzarote at Kempton, when coming from a bit too far back, really. And if you're going to come from that far back, you don't need to get stopped in the run, and that's what Serious Operator did. And when you consider the runner-up in that Nemian Lion has gone on to win the Kingwell at Wincanton, that looks good form. And there's other reasons to suspect that's good form as well. Other horses have come out and run well, so thought that was good. And with a bit more to offer, I think Serious Operator is one of the least exposed. And Patrick Watch is a rider, I think, who's very good value. He's got a lot of experience now. He claims £3, and that's a bonus. So Serious Operator is the one I like.
That is the 142 done at Kelso. Serious Operator and 2 shouts for Brewing Up a Storm. The 155 is the Greatwood Gold Cup. Thanks for your question. Incidentally, Archie will answer it when we get to the Grinthorpe. I assure you, the 155 has Grandier Dame at 5.0. High stakes player at 5.5, 6.0 Can Do Kid, Jeremon 9.0, Jetois 9.0, Heltenham 10.0. We'll come to that. Good old Sir Psycho at 11.0, who was one of my lucky arrows bang at the start of the season. Steve, I know you are. Owen says you're a serious operator on this pod. I was thinking the same, Steve, but I didn't say it. Thanks, Owen. I'm back with Serious Operator. Sorry, bloody hell. I'm back with Sir Psycho. They stuck the cheap pieces on last time. I guess it was a bit disappointing, Steve. He didn't follow up after the Ascot success. And then last time, he went at the first. So I'm sort of struggling to see why he's the price he is now off the back of a nothing last time. I mean, if you go back to the Ascot run, it might be that fresh is the time to catch him, or it might be that was the only time he was going to win another race, having been a bit of a flop for Nichols and now moved to Derham. But I thought at the prices, he was well worth chancing.
I totally agree with you, yeah. Sir Psycho seems to have been rejuvenated by joining Harry Derham, which isn't exactly a one-off. And he wasn't a disappointment last time, was 2 starts ago, really. He ran well. He wasn't like beating Miles. He was just giving a stone or more to a horse who was probably well enough handicapped in testing ground. So you ignore last time at Sandown. Sandown probably isn't his track, and Exeter might not be his track either, although he won at Ascot. And I just thought there was a pretty much an absence of horses that I wanted to be with in here. And Sir Psycho should be up with the pace and should have every chance. I wouldn't go mad on it, but I think he's, like you say, overpriced.
I don't think he's ever the sort of horse you go mad on, particularly at a short price, but 11.0, thank you very much. Dan.
I'm after revenge this week. Heltenham last weekend was my best bet of the weekend. And to be honest, we knew our fate just at the off. He went from 4.5 to 7.5 right before the off. The favourite was strong, but he was alarmingly weak. And then he was ridden with extreme caution, so we say. He stuttered into a load of the opening fences. He was going back over fences after being over hurdles, but to me, that was a clear indication that today was not the day. So I'm hoping it's unorthodox prep to get him ready for this and turn him out a week later. He would have won that race. He travelled the best through it and then was just caught on the inside, had to go wide. They all finished in a bit of a heap, but the handicapper didn't touch him. He remains on a mark 130. To me, I think he would have bolted up in that race if he was actually given the full application, because he was just not given a chance to. I think given his record at Newbury and his general preference to maybe go flat left-handed tracks, this could have been a bit of a long-term plan. I'm convinced he's got another race in him off this mark of 130. Any rain won't be too much of a bother. The only time he run disappointing and really testing ground with Aintree, and that was completely bottomless. I don't think it's going to get that extreme. So that's all positive. The trips are positive. The tracks are positive. And if this is some kind of master stroke long-term plan, then I think he'll go off a hell of a lot shorter than his current price of 10.0.
Gus says, can anyone take anything Thomas says seriously after he tipped up Goshen? It's a fair statement. It's fair.
I did warn you.
It was shocking. Yeah. To which Matchbook have replied, we've had words with Tom about backing Goshen and laying Constitution Hill. Well, all right. 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
Would you back Goshen again? What would it need to be?
On performance enhancing drugs. Probably.
Good answer.
Yes. No is the simple answer. I wouldn't. No.
Good man.
Also, I would like to point out I put up Constitution Hill as a lay on the day at shorter. So there you go. That didn't work either. Right. Where are we going? Kelso 217. This is the Premier Novices Hurdle. Django Bay is a Grade 1 winner and is 3.0. Alnalam is 6.5. Personal Ambition is 7.5. Brucio is 8.0. Bigger prices the rest. Couple of us with Personal Ambition. Dan, you and I. When he won at Warwick, obviously that form is looking very good now. However, I don't think Ginkgo Blue was. He didn't really give his running that day. I don't think. I think subsequent events would probably tell you he definitely didn't. He's really improved with his racing. But Personal Ambitions, then his run at Sandown was on, that was testing ground, and he was just in a bit too deep too early. He obviously then went to Donny and won nicely, but he was probably entitled to, although he won a bit better than his price perhaps suggested he would. And I just haven't got the love for Django Bay. I think he may not have come off best in the Grade 1 if the Elliott horse had stood up. He was beaten by a Pauling horse last time. I feel like Pauling's novices are still underestimated this year. So at 7.5, I'd much rather back Personal Ambition, personally.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially on the Ginkgo Blue point. Obviously, people will see that he beat a 140 rated horse and think he must win this, but Ginkgo Blue was very errant on that occasion. But I think, to be Personal Ambition's credit as well, he didn't jump well at all. So I think you can mark both of them up for that run. As you mentioned, you could put a line through the Sandown heavy performance. So many horses don't handle it. He just didn't seem to. Back on track last time out under a penalty. And I think, crucially, around Kelso, you like a prominent ride, always suits, very sharp hurdles track. He will go forward. And as you said, Tom, Ben Pauling has a pretty good crop of novice hurdlers. I think he's amongst them. He'll have a bit of a line through Django Bay as well, because obviously handstands beat him last time out in the Sydney Bank. So he'll probably know where he stands. And I think given that he's likely to go forward, I think this trip is ideal. I think he's pretty much guaranteed to be there or thereabouts. So he's a decent win and place proposition for me.
Steve, have you got one here?
I have, yeah. I was tempted by Personal Ambition, I must say, because Ben Pauling does seem to have some really good novices this season. I think he's the next trainer that will break into sort of the top 5. I think he's getting more and more ammunition, and he does very well with it. But I'm going to go with the mare, Brucio, right down the bottom, and take the chance that at face value, that Leopardstown listed hurdle from the Dublin Racing Festival is what Brucio is capable of. And although she was getting a fair bit of weight in there, she was getting a fair bit of weight off really good horses. And she was very strong in the finish. And in testing ground that it's likely to be at Kelso with all the rain on its way, I think she might be the one to see it out best off her getting weight off all the others. So, yeah, a progressive horse who's taken a while to take to hurdles, to find her form over hurdles. But certainly what she did last time at Leopardstown was most impressive. And I'm willing to take that at face value.
At 8.0 for Brucio. We're all against the favourite there. We move on to the 235 at Donny. And we've got On Public, who is 4.0. Tommy's Oscar is 4.0. Nubanegra is 4.33, 8.0. Melistic Numitor 13.0. Riders on the Storm 15.0. The Big Bike 26.0. Nothing for you, Steve. Dan, take it away.
Yeah, this is a trappy little race. Obviously, Hon Public at the head of the market. I haven't seen him for a while. He's probably the one who could progress, but I don't think his form's necessarily that strong. Tommy's Oscar's obviously going to be popular, given he seems to like these tracks, but it'll be well found in the market. I'm not sure if he might just be slightly on the decline now. Obviously, he's been on the go a while. He's been a really good horse, but I think signs maybe the last twice he's not quite as good as he was. And then you've got some real random types in here who I think are quite hard to trust. So I came to Melistic, who's back on his last winning mark of 147. That came last April, where he beat Elixir de Nuts, who was running up 146. That was a very good performance on that occasion. It took a big step in the right direction last time out when third here at Doncaster. That was a decent race. He was giving a lot of weight to some decent horses. Calico was in third, and he'll be there or thereabouts at the Grand Annual, I think. Trapane Law was back in fifth. He just bolted up a couple of days ago. You can forgive his last 3 runs before that because they just weren't his conditions. He wants a flat, galloping, left-handed track. He gets that here. All of his best chase form comes in those conditions. And I think while he isn't getting any younger, most of these aren't either. There's a few that I think are quite hard to trust. So this looks a decent opportunity to get another win on the board.
And I am going to chance, just on the fact that, like you say, it's a trappy little race. I just didn't want to play the top of the market at all. And then I got to Riders on the Storm, who he's a fairly treated horse off 130 on peak form. Obviously, his last win came off 139. I know that was a little while ago. We haven't seen him 67 days. He's had his win done. But I quite like the angle back over 2 miles with him. And I quite like Gavin Sheehan back on board. I know the last time he rode him, it didn't work out, but I think a nice patient ride over 2, which is what I hope he does, because sometimes he does crack on with it. But I hope they just sit off and they go hard for him, and he's sort of ridden to pick up the pieces late on. The ground does seem. I don't think wind wise he wears a tongue tie. He's got the cheek pieces back on, but I don't think he's going to want testing ground. For all he has won on it in the past, but just his peak performances have come on a sounder surface. I think we'll be. There's rain around at Donny tomorrow, but I don't think we'll be worse than soft. So 15.0, he was the only one I wanted to play small win and place in a race. I wanted to swerve the top of the market. Steve, you're nothing there, are you? Right, so we move on to the More Battle Hurdle 250 at Kelso. We've got 4 different shouts here. Right, Steve, first of all.
I'm going to go for a horse unbeaten in handicaps in Bingu, who won a 4-runner Hexham handicap last March and has won twice since as well. Hexham wouldn't be the immediate race course you'd think you'd see a horse like this, but Bingo, what he did last time at Aintree, that was very good in beating Ted Hastings, and I think that's quite good form in the way he did it, in the manner of a progressive horse. And the fact that was Boxing Day, I think, is interesting because he's got a very good record fresh. He's won 5 times, and 3 of them have come after 63 days, 219 days, and 246 days. So when he comes back from 2 months or more off the track, he's unbeaten in 3 starts. And it's a really, really competitive race that you're going to need a little bit in hand. And I think he has. So Jimmy Moffat, who's had a good winter with a small team, does the training, and Bingo must have some sort of chance. But like I say, it is a really hot race.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be out and out against Under Control at all. But I thought Black Hawk Eagle, there was a bit of juice left in his price at 6.0, who is progressing really nicely for a yard that are bang in form at the moment and having a good year. Again, you wouldn't want the ground to be too testing. I don't think it's going to be. It's currently good to soft. And he just has the profile of, which you get in races like this with a hot yard, of a sort of progressive dual winner from 2 from 2, who's actually a bit, I thought, disrespected at the prices, because I've been very impressed with what he's done. He's up £6 for that comfortable success last time. All right, this is a step up, but I thought he could easily be closer to Under Control in the betting. Who was absolutely hammered last time she ran in a handicap, but then again the time before that won nicely. 6.0 Black Hawk Eagle. 2 for you, Dan.
Yeah, I think you have to respect Under Control, as you said, Tom. She's just obviously still very well handicapped on that Iberico Lord form. Good return to form last time out when splitting Ashro Diamond Gallimar. So I think a lot will be made of Nicky Henderson's stable form, and I've seen a lot of comments already, obviously with the Constitution Hill news, that will amplify that. And I think it will keep her price maybe artificially big, because I think you look at his runners in isolation, there have been reasons for the disappointment rather than just assuming the entire yard are under a cloud. So until there's more evidence, I wouldn't be judging the yard form too much. So I think she has to be respected, given she still looks like she's well handicapped. One at a big price I like at 51.0 currently is Caithness for Lucinda Russell. Now, Kelso, in my mind, is not a track that suits every horse. It's very sharp, very undulating. Those are two unique characteristics of it. And this is a horse who's won twice over course and distance this season. On the second occasion, he beat a horse called El Jefe. He has now progressed pretty much 2 stone in rating since then, and he was getting a lot of weight off Caithness on that occasion as well. It was a decent performance. It didn't look like much at the time, but El Jefe's proven that was actually quite a decent bit of form. He then went to Cheltenham in the November meeting, where he's third to Impostoir, who was just a complete rick off 121, only beaten a couple of lengths on that occasion. Donica was basically alongside. He won on a couple of starts later after being third again at Cheltenham. It is generally quite a solid piece of handicap form. The fourth was Mr. Mackay, who was actually 2 lengths behind Black Hawk Eagle last time out. So the form does tie in with some of those towards the head of the market. He's had 2 poor runs since that last decent run at Cheltenham, but both came on sharp right-handed tracks. And to me, I think he's a much better horse going left-handed. We know he likes Kelso, and crucially, his run style suits. He's a keen going front runner, and while he won't be able to just easily dictate in a big field, he'll be in the right position. And if he can bounce back, we know he likes the course, and he's a really big price.
I really like that case.
I pull one out of the window sometimes, Tom. It's not all just bluster from me.
No, I really do. My big prices tend to go, don't know, possibly.
Yeah, but they win.
Actually, it's got no chance. I really like. I think genuinely that is because I'm convinced. I'm going to back that. Thanks.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good shout. Very good. That is Caithness 51.0 and the other end of the market, Under Control at 4.5. Graham said Under Control won't like heavy. What are we working on for Kelso? What are we expecting?
So as you said, good to soft currently. There's bits of rain about, so maybe I'd say soft side of good to soft at the worst. That was the last time I checked, so I don't think it's going to get really testing. Newbury will be testing. Yeah. Doncaster may get soft with a fair bit of rain about Friday evening, Saturday morning, but Kelso, I don't think will change drastically.
Oh, I was thinking it was going to. There's a lot. The forecast I saw was a lot of rain for Friday night, and the way the winter's been so wet, I thought it could go quite testing. That's the problem with racing, because you're stuck with the weather forecast, aren't you? Which isn't really reliable. But yeah, because that's the thing with Under Control. She is in all sorts of things at Cheltenham, and she was a non-runner at Newbury a couple of weeks ago. But if it doesn't rain, then she's
you're right.
There's a good chance.
There's now some rain about, Friday night.
3:10.
Yeah, when I last checked, there wasn't much rain about, but there is a bit more rain on Friday night now.
3:10 at Donny. Steve, just you. This is the Mayor's Novices Hurdle. Your selection is... I've forgotten it, so I can't tell you the price. That's good. Oh, big price, Steve. Big price.
Yeah, big price. And I can't quite get my head around why this horse is such a big price. Because although it is fairly competitive race. I think she's got a really good chance. Baby Shally, who is stepping up to 3 miles for the first time. That is just what she wants, in my opinion. Anthony Honeyball had a good weekend last weekend, won the big race at Kempton. And Baby Shally won first time up this season at Wincanton. Be 2 sharp, 2.5 round there. So she did really well to win, beating Don't Rightly Know. And Don't Rightly Know went on to finish second to Gay Legacy in a handicap at Newbury. And Gay Legacy is getting on for favourite for this race. So the collateral form gives Baby Shally a right chance. And since then, midfield at Huntingdon, 2 sharp, especially on good to soft ground, way 2 sharp. Didn't run at all bad behind Springtime Promise, who won the listed mares, I think, at the Jane Seymour at Sandown the other day. And then last time, again, back at Wincanton, 2 sharp, 2.5 on good to soft. Run perfectly respectably, up to 3 miles on more testing ground. And Baby Shally's just a cracker's price. And I don't expect... she's the wrong price. That's the thing. She will contract dramatically, I should think. But she's starting off from a long price, so maybe she won't go too short because she's got a great chance, I think. Winning place, Baby Shally.
That's the only shout in the Mayor's Novice. The 3:25 is the Premier Chase at Kelso, and it's just Dan and I playing, and we have come down on the same horse, who I didn't think after the Cheltenham run I would ever go near. But the trip is worth a go, isn't it? Another go over 3, because it just shapes as though Thunder Rock wants it.
Yeah, I'd agree. And also, I just think these small field conditions races are much more his thing. Like, I was not a fan going into that handicap at Cheltenham just because I'm not sure big fields and his jumping necessarily holds up. But up to 3 miles, I'm hoping there isn't too much rain. I wouldn't want it to get really testing for him. So that forecast is now a bit of a concern. But I think he'll stay 3 miles in a small field conditions race. Obviously, Monbeg Genius is taking up a lot of the market. It's basically a Grand National prep for him. And I know Cloth Cap won this race when doing likewise, but there's just not really been very many good vibes about Monbeg Genius. He's here, he's there, he's not running. Obviously, the ownership issue. There's just so many things going on. So I'm happy to take him on. I just think the conditions of this race will suit. Although he's got to give a penalty away, he's probably the one in here who could still be able to do a fair bit more progress. His second to That's All Right Gino at Ayr reads well now. His Marlow Mission victory as well at Carlisle earlier this season looks good as well. And that was a small fields conditions race. So those, I think, are going to be his bag. Finish his race off nicely last time out. And I watched an interview with Ella McNeil recently where she said that was basically to get his confidence back. They needed to get him back on the right standing after that disappointment at Cheltenham. He did that. He was held up, stayed on really powerfully. I do think he'll get 3 miles. I don't think he'd love it in a really strong pace, big field handicap, but a small field conditions race, I think that'll suit. Kelso is relatively stiff, but not the stiffest. I still think there's a bit more to come from him. So if his jumping holds up, and I think it will in this field, I think he's actually quite a good bet.
Okay. Yeah. So, I wouldn't be overly confident, but the more I went through it, I thought, this is really going to suit him. But if he jumps like he did at Cheltenham with stuff, but maybe just that's the track. That's not the track for him. There we are.
I think a bit of that. Yeah, a bit of that in big fields, not his thing.
Okay. Let's go more with a big field. I prefer that. All right. Thunder Rock for Dan and I, 7.5 I have in front of me. What do we put in the document? 8.0. There we go. Let's stick with that because that's written down. It's bigger. The Grinthorpe is the 345. 3 different selections. Now, I'm with some scope, who I know that Steve loathes at the prices. I've been mega impressed with this horse on his last couple of starts. He's 4.0. He's the only horse I want to back in the race. It's going to be slightly easier ground, I know, but I thought £10 higher was justified. He's a horse that I don't know why I put him in my tracker at the start of the season. Obviously, somebody smart. I don't know whether he went up from someone on the Match But Horse Follow podcast, but somebody picked the horse out as going to have a very good season over fences, and that's exactly how it's transpired. So I certainly would rather be with him than against. But Steve, you differ. So perhaps make your case for the horse you like, and then you can tear apart some scope.
Well, it's Richard Hobson's other one. Doc picked me, who hasn't been with the stable very long. He was with Harry Whittington, and he's only had 4 starts, all of them over fences. And this race is chock full of horses that don't want soft ground. And although it's starting off all right, there's loads of rain around at Doncaster, and I think it's going to go right testing, and it won't suit a lot of horses. And last time, Doc picked me at Wetherby, dropped in distance for Lee Edwards, who also rides, which kind of is an indication that maybe he's not a second string. He's given that Gavin Sheehan rides some scope. But Doc picked me. I was quite impressed with the going up in distance again. His hurdles form was all over 3 miles. And I think he just lost his way. It was desperate ground when he didn't run very well at Newbury, like desperate ground. And I think he can cope much better with this sort of surface. There'll be just proper soft ground that he'll cope with better than most. And he's had a breathing operation. It can't have been a serious one because he's back out a month later or so. So, yeah, it was Doc picked me in that I thought was overpriced at about 17. So the reason I don't like Some Scope is that he's gone up £10 for winning, albeit impressively, on decent ground at Doncaster. He's unproven on soft ground, which is fairly likely to be. He's also taken on the highest rating horse. I know ratings don't mean anything, but they do in handicaps when you're kind of pegging a horse's ability to a certain respect. And Some Scope, the highest rated horse he's beaten is 122. And Charlie Umberales, who's the bottom weight in this, is 123. So he's never beaten a horse that would have been able to run in this race. Well, of this grade kind of thing that is in this race. So I just think he was the wrong favourite. I see he's a nice horse with potential, but I think he's got a lot more on his plate than the market suggests. So there's every chance if he doesn't like the soft ground that he might just completely bomb out. So I would lay him to place.
All right, and we'll confirm that in the lays. Dan, you can make your case. Also, you can touch on Archie said at the top. Interested to hear thoughts on Certainly Red. I backed him at 12.0 this morning.
Yeah, on Certainly Red, I guess if the rain comes that Steve's alluding to, and having checked the forecast, there is now a bit more around for Doncaster. He would be inconvenienced by that. All of his best form seems to come on good ground. So maybe they run here, then go to the race at Sandown at the end of the season where he ran pretty well recently, and he ran respectably there last season off a higher mark. So maybe they're just looking back from Sandown at the end of the season, Celebration Chase Day. So maybe that would be the long-term play. I'd keep an eye on the weather, and I'd also keep an eye on the weather for Charlie Umberales, who a lot of his form is on good ground. I'm not sure he would be overly inconvenienced by soft. He wouldn't want it heavy, but he's clearly a progressive staying chaser and one of the few in this lineup who I think has a bit more upscope. Only 5 chase starts to his name, 1-2 of them. They fought enough of him to run in the Welsh National, but I think you can forgive any horse for not liking conditions on Welsh National Day, especially this Welsh National. It was really attritional, but really ran really well in the Great Yorkshire, when third. He was 3 lengths ahead of Earn River, who was only £1 better off, more exposed, is currently shorter in the betting for this race than his. Forward Plan was second. He's franked that form as we saw last weekend. I think he'll like the extra couple of furlongs on this occasion. As I say, in comparison to a lot of his rivals, he's pretty unexposed and pretty consistent as well. So I'll be watching the weather. I wouldn't want it to get too testing, but if it's soft and not too heavy, I think he's still a good win and place option at 13.0.
All righty, that's Doc picked me at 17.0, Charlie Umberales at 12.0, Some Scope for me at 4.0, who Steve wants to lay, all ends up. We come to the Matchbook Zero long shot. Reminder that Matchbook Zero goes live at 10 a.m. each day, and there is zero margin and zero commission, so you're most likely to be taking advantage of better odds, as you are likely to do with the exchange. Can't say definitely, but it's very likely. And with Matchbook Zero, no margin, no commission, those likely best odds are only further enhanced. I'm with Riders on the Storm in that 235 at Donny, back over 2 miles. Dan?
I won't quite make it my best bet this weekend, but Heltenham in the 155 at Newbury at 11.0 currently, out for some revenge.
Steve?
And at Doncaster.
That's Baby Shally in the 310. Okay. On best lays, I'm going to lay Django Bay, who in that Premier hurdle, I was going to use the Henderson form line And I just think this between he and Personal Ambition, I don't think there's as much between them as the market would suggest. So I'll be against Django Bay in the 217 at Kelso. Steve, we know some scope. You're laying all ends up to place as well, right? Or just to place?
Just to place, yeah. It's not really my sort of price to lay. He's what is he 4 or something like that? I don't see the benefit in laying a horse like that, but certainly to play, I think there is a chance that he could completely bomb out. The interesting thing with Nicky Henderson's stable form, I think the point that a lot of people haven't appreciated is that it was the wettest February on record, and his horses generally have been struggling on the conditions. And if you're looking at a view to Cheltenham, I think quite often the higher class horses can run through stable form a bit. So I don't think it's black and white that Nicky Henderson's stable is completely out of form.
Okay. That's something that Dan's addressed as well earlier on. Best bets, everybody. Mine is, we have got 3 different races. Mine's Personal Ambition in that 217 at Kelso. Dan?
Let's praise Jumping Holds Up, Thunder Rock in the 325 at Kelso.
Imagine. And Steve, all the way back to the opener.
Fortescue, 120 Newbury.
Great stuff. Steve, Dan, thank you very much indeed. Don't forget to check out our Cheltenham preview, which went live on Monday, rattling through all the grade 1s, plus handicaps, plus other bets. There was shed loads in there in 2 hours. And keep an eye out for us next week, Wednesday, 7:15 for our handicap special. What mark did your handicap good thing get, Dan, overall? Were you happy?
Waterford Whisper's got 133, so he'll probably get in. The only problem is a certain horse called Sam Majest now in the Martin Pipe in the same colours. Could be a bit of an issue, but there we are.
Always issues with the handicaps. So keep an eye out for that. That's 7:15 on Wednesday. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.